Hello, namaste, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Cricket for Us. And today we're discussing West Indies versus England, the Test series that was the talk of the town because of what happened in Pakistan, where it was flat tracks all days, every day. And then in the last day, Pakistan decided not to be able to play Spain. But we're going to talk about a more interesting series. And thankfully, I have a very special guest. I've got Rob or Bobby, whatever he wants to be referred as. But for now, I'll call him Rob because keep it formal. From the Leading Edge podcast, I definitely recommend you guys go check them out. There was a brilliant rant of 44 minutes, absolutely dissecting England's third Test performance and the rest of the series. Please do check it out. I'll leave some sort of link or banner at the top here. But yeah, Rob, how you doing, man? Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for having us, mate. Shame Richie, my partner, couldn't make it on at the same time. He's got a bit of COVID going around. But if there's ever an opportunity to talk about English cricket, particularly the disappointments as a long-suffering English fan, I'm all in.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Okay, so let's talk about it then. Let's start from the beginning. What, and this is going to be a very broad question, so you can go in detail as
Yeah.
you'd like. What went wrong from the English perspective? Like the biggest thing that went wrong for England. What do you
Yeah,
think that was?
I think if you look over English cricket over the last 18 to 24 months, there's a theme, and it's not a bad theme to have in life where the coaches try to put the mental health of the players above anything else to support them during the bubbles, during the hard times. And that's great. But at the end of the day, I respect that. But at the end of the day, 99% of cricket fans just want results, just want performances. And at the end of the day, that's what you're going to be judged on. If you're a batsman, your currency is runs. If you're a bowler, your currency is going to be wickets. And England's gone through the 18 months with a very, very average performance anywhere they've been in the world other than when they toured Sri Lanka. Sri Lankan team that I rate really, really highly, but just are very, very inconsistent still at the moment. They're still on the rise. And the things that went wrong in the West Indies are no different to what went wrong in Australia. We didn't bat well when the ball moved. We declared 3 times in 6 innings, which is an utter state of dominance from a batting performance. But the fact is we got bowled out for 204 and 120 as soon as the ball moved. So we're still no further on in establishing whether we're a good batting team or not. We just know we can bat on a flat deck where the ball's not moving. And it comes back to the same issues in the Ashes of, what was your selection? What was that? Like, where's Anderson? Where's Broad? Like, we've spoke about it at length, but it still is baffling and it still hurts. And I think any team in the world that's got Craig Overton opening the bowling in Test cricket is not going to win many games of cricket and isn't going to pick up 20 wickets very often.
Okay, first off, Craig Overton in county cricket in England, I would have him open the bowling, but not Test cricket, not England, in the West Indies or in Australia or anywhere like that. So completely agree with you there. The one point you raised that I wholeheartedly agree with is the fact that England on flat tracks, be it ODI cricket, be it T20, be it Test, they are absolute bosses. But as soon as the ball starts to do a bit, especially in Test cricket, they do struggle. And we saw it. Kemar Roach, Jaden Seals, Kyle Mayers picking up 5 wickets. I'm sorry for the pause before. Kyle Mayers, great talent, right? But since the double hundred in Bangladesh with the bat, he hasn't done much. And then with the ball, you don't expect him to be one of your big wicket takers. Yes, he is considered an all-rounder.
Yeah.
But I didn't expect him to, what was it? An economy of around 1, picking up a 5 for, it was
incredible, mate. It was Scotty Boland level of impact. Comes in one test, 6 or 7 wickets at an average of 6 or 7, and it's completely changed the concept of the game. And you look at the standard of bowling that was there before he came in. You've got no rhyme or reason to go and put $10 on Carl Myers to be the guy that comes out man of the match, and maybe he didn't get man of the match, maybe Joshua De Silva got it, but goes and takes the most wickets and has the biggest impact with the ball.
Yeah, and it's good to see that from a West Indian point of view, but absolutely terrible from the English standpoint. I want to go into, you mentioned a name there, you mentioned Joshua De Silva. How good was he with the bat, especially in this third test? Because what I tried to do was try and compare England's wicket keeping and England's wicketkeeper batsmen over the last couple of years. And yes, I'm just using your content to try and push you into a certain direction.
Yeah.
But what did you think of the way Ben Foakes was utilized, or maybe Johnny Bairstow was utilized, compared with the way Joshua De Silva played and was utilized from the West Indies perspective?
Good question. I thought De Silva was outstanding, and it's not just one innings he's been outstanding. There's been several times through this series where he's really stood up batting at 7 or 8, which is extremely low, given most people would like a wicketkeeper batsman at 6 to give them more stability and flexibility with what they're going to do with the rest of the team. He was just outstanding. He was confident. He was good on good pitches, but he was world class and played a world class innings on a difficult pitch. Now, the only caveat to him scoring 100 against England on that pitch is you've got Chris Woakes, who averages over 50 with a new ball away from home, and you've got Craig Overton, as we spoke. But it doesn't negate or take anything away from just one of the highest quality innings under pressure on a pitch where I don't think anyone else reached 50. It's just outstanding, mate. And it's good to see a young West Indian wicketkeeper play with such poise and composure, because you see wicketkeepers around the world, and the ones that everyone loves are the ones that comes in and goes crash bang wallop. Rishabh Pant, the way he comes in, the way Gilchrist used to come in back in the day. This is, people love Joss Butler for what he did in white ball cricket. He couldn't replicate it in Test cricket because he didn't know how to play the game in Test cricket, unfortunately. But it's just so good. A strong West Indies team is always good for world cricket, and having potentially, there's a long way to go, one of the best wicketkeeper batsmen in the world is going to be a hell of a doth of the cap to them for where they're going. And, where did England go with wicketkeeper? You took Joss Butler, who's supposed to be white ball darling, never did it for me in Test cricket, never did it for a lot of people, I feel, in Test cricket. But I think the thing that disappointed us with Butler was his glove work just seemed to deteriorate over time, and he didn't get better at the profession that he's trying to do. New wicketkeeper coming in is always a difficult position, because yourself, when you're not in the team, you're a better player because everyone talks you up, and it's like, he's the best gloveman since Jack Russell took the gloves for England back in the 90s, since Alan Knott took the gloves for England in the 70s and 80s. Is he? I'm seeing a wicketkeeper that's really good, but I didn't see the best wicketkeeper in the world, which he's been touted to be. And, there's no harm in not being the best wicketkeeper in the world. I think my expectation was he was slightly better than that. And his batting performance, I feel, really didn't do him any justice. It was like Sam Billings coming in for a test in Australia. He did okay, but you didn't go, oh, we've got to win here. I think we've got a position where we go with him because he's a good wicketkeeper and he could be a good batsman that averages 30. But I just feel there's a hell of a lot to work to do. After that initial 42, I came away feeling a little disappointed.
No, fair point. And I think the type of impact you're probably trying to get from a new English wicketkeeper is something similar to what Joshua De Silva did against New Zealand in his first couple of games. He came in and completely changed the way West Indies played, and coming in at number 8, as you mentioned. So I completely agree with that. I want to talk about a player that England has been blessed with over the past 10 years, right? He's captained the side, right? He's scored, I don't know how many runs last year, third highest in a calendar year in Test cricket, Joe Root. Now, he's going to keep getting you runs, but what is it with regards to the way he's utilizing his spinners or his bowlers? Or I know every time he's asked a question or anything about team selection, he's not the one making the team selection, strictly speaking, right? So for that reason, he can kind of hide behind that. But what are your thoughts on Joe Root, the captain? Because Joe Root, the batsman, has had a stellar year and a half. So there's nothing that I can argue about, Joe Root not being in the side or anything. But Joe Root as captain, where do you think he's gone wrong? And do you expect, and I believe Ben Stokes is probably going to take the reins, but first off, how did you find Joe Root's captaincy? And second, do you think Ben Stokes is the right guy to take it forward for England?
Good question. Root the person, Root the cricketer, outstanding. Hands down, one of the best in the world and one of the best people and representation of people I've seen as an England cricketer for a long, long time. Root the captain, to me, I thought it's very difficult to see from an England team when you've got very few regulars in there. Who comes next? Which your logical point comes, is it Ben Stokes, who's had mental health problems, workload problems, and already carries so much on that team? Is it right to give it to him? My problem with Root's captaincy is, one, there's a very negative mindset when he's on the field. And I can see this from two points of view. One, we want to take wickets, and you've got to take wickets, particularly in the first 25 overs. I see tactics of, in Australia, we're going to have Ben Stokes bowling 125k on one knee, bowling short at someone's head, which puts 2-3 times the force through the body for 45 minutes at a time. I see spinners with the field all the way back. I've seen a lack of impetus to try and win games of cricket. When England played New Zealand and Kane Williamson set a very easygoing kind of, I think it was about 250 to win.
Yeah.
We told Dom Sibley just to bat for 3.5 sessions and score 60. That's a lack of impetus, a lack of nows coming from the top about actually we've won 1 in 17 games of cricket. We need to win games of cricket. So I think he falls down on that regard. But to back him up, he's had a very, very poor run of batsmen in the team, which makes it incredibly hard to have runs to create meaningful fields to try and take wickets and all the rest of it. The sort of thing that Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson have said and found themselves dropped. Mm-hmm. He also, I am holding responsible in some way, shape or form, the selection. There's no way in this all-inclusive nature of this England team under Silverwood and possibly under Collingwood as well, yet to be determined, that Joe Root doesn't have impact on who is taking that pitch. It's gone are the days where it's Raymond Illingworth and he's telling you who's going to be on the pitch. Joe Root has he's got skin in the game on who's coming on this pitch. And, you know, some of the selections have been horrendous. No Broad at the Gabba against David Warner's awful, but then not taking them to the West Indies. He's part of that. And I'm not cool with that. I'm not okay with that being an outcome of this England team and us taking a second-rate team to the West Indies and losing.
Yeah, and I love how you've explained that, because you've taken all the points that I could have potentially thought and just explained it a lot better. So thank you for going into that much detail. And I just want to ask, you mentioned the Broad Anderson fiasco, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Can you try and help me understand why that selection was taken for, because I've tried to justify it to people who've come up to me and asked me this question.
Yeah.
And I go around in circles, apart from the fact that they just want to try someone new. That's the only thing that I can think of. Is there any logical reason you can think of?
I think everyone's taking a stab in the dark and coming away with they want to try someone else. The rationale or trying to put reasoning behind it that I can see is, one, they do need to move on. They do need to try other people. You do not try other people when the Ashes rolls around, because that's just a fact. Like, if you're Chris Schofield or left armour that bowled for England, you go into the Ashes for a test, you get bullied, you get thrown out the other end, and you never play again. So you've got to build them up over the Ashes cycle. And I don't like the fact our test cricket revolves around playing the Ashes, but that's how it is. So you've got to give these guys a go. And the West Indies are ranked 9th or 10th in the world, which feels a reasonable team to try new things against. Not saying it's right, not saying I agree with it, just trying to put some meat on the bones around what potentially they might be thinking about it. The other one is they've talked about dressing room atmosphere and how much of a deterrent Anderson and Broad is in those dressing rooms. And I think they are well within their right to, one, they get criticised in Australia for not taking enough wickets. And Broad's like, mate, we're scoring 140 every single time we bat. What do you expect me to do? I can't go and get 8 for 15 like I did at Trent Bridge in 2015 every single time I take the pitch. It's an incredibly hard position. So I think they've had a rap on the knuckle because of that and potentially not being the best teamman in the world during the last period of time and blaming the batsman.
Yeah.
It's incredibly frustrating as an England fan to see that, because I look back at Kevin Peterson, and Peterson was not people's cup of tea, but Peterson, when he got dropped, scored the most runs in the Ashes, and he got dropped because of attitude. And I feel, as a fan, I'm taking Peterson, the person, away from it. We got robbed of a couple of years of Kevin Peterson playing amazing innings and being quality. And I just worry that we're getting the same with Anderson and Broad, and they're both going to be pushed along to the side. The final argument on this, going around the houses, was Gerard Kimber did a fantastic video on Broad and Anderson and why you may drop them. And he looked at it from a wicket per innings basis, playing away from home. And if you take Anderson and Broad and you play Anderson and Broad, he wasn't quite sure how you were going to get 20 wickets to win the game. And I respect that decision, because you look at the stats, that's absolutely fine. My view is they are the two most likely bowlers to take wickets anywhere in the world. Anderson averages around 20 anywhere in the world for the last 4 years. Broad has got the most wickets, I think, with the new ball in the last 3 or 4 years in that 0 to 16 over period. They're the best at what they do for England. And it's like going to Joe Root. Joe Root, you're 34, you scored 1,500 runs last year, mate. Sorry, we're going to go and try Stephen Mullaney from Notts. Like, we're going to bring someone in and give them a go just because we need to work out what the future is. It's like no other sport would do that to their best players. It's disrespectful.
I completely agree. And I think one thing I'm kind of okay with now, based on your rationale and Jared Kimber's rationale, as you mentioned, is that even though it might be a step in the right direction from an England perspective, right? That, oh, we're going to try new things, we're going to have to use these particular bowlers in these particular conditions, but there is no one who has been better for
Yeah,
England for so long. Now, forget the 15 years. Just look at the last 5. They're still one of the best from an England perspective. And if you look
yeah,
at it from around the world, 100% in the top 10. Now,
yeah.
it would have been different if Mark Wood and Archer and Ollie Stone were all fit and ready to pounce. I would understand it. But yeah, that was a shocker. But yeah, thanks for that. I want to just shift our eye a bit on to West Indies, because
Mm.
what West Indies did in this series, I briefly mentioned Roach and Seals. So Roach, specifically Kemar Roach, he is getting up there in terms of age, therefore losing some pace, getting the ball to do bits off the pitch. So kind of like Chris Oakes. Why was he much better at actually utilizing the conditions? Was it more to do with the batsman's fault, or do you think Kemar Roach did something slightly more different to be able to pick up those wickets? Jaden Seals, obviously, he's young, he's got
Yeah,
pace as well, so he's a bit out there sometimes, but he does pick up wickets, and that's, at the end of the day, that's the stat that matters, right? But
it is.
in terms of Kemar Roach, what do you think he did different that, unfortunately, from an English perspective, Chris Wokes or Craig Overton weren't able to do with the new ball?
I thought I've always thought for a long time Roach's quality, and you're right, he has drop pace, but it hasn't negated any quality that he's able to perform. In fact, he's probably got a better cricketer because of it, because he's so mentally smart about the art of bowling, which, rolling back to Jimmy Anderson and Broad, even if they're not playing, how good would it have been for Mark Fisher, for Saki Mahmood to chat to those guys going, what are you doing with this guy? How do you get this guy out? Potentially the best bowling coaches in the world available to you, unavailable. Roach, I feel when I look at it, and I haven't looked at analysis to know this, I love the way he's a wicket-taking bowler. He's always challenging the batsman on the stumps. And you saw how he bowled to Alex Lee straight away. Straight away. He's getting the ball to go away, and he gets the one to go straight on, hit him on the pads. I feel he's always in the game. The angle that he bowls is quite short, quite skiddy. He's always darting it into the stumps or round about that third or fourth stump. And possibly one thing that goes under the radar about his game is the lack of, it's not a lack of control, but the amount of control that he actually provides the West Indies with that new ball. He's always challenging them with. And Jaden Seals was a little bit less challenging. He was a little bit more erratic around his line and length, but the amount of movement that guy was getting, and again, I've not seen the CricViz stats to go, oh yeah, he was swinging it 1.5 degrees or whatever it was. Just the eye test was he was hooping the ball miles at really good pace. And you got someone like Zach Crawley up the top of the order who likes to drive, likes to go hard hands. It's great. Looks beautiful when it comes off. But you can see why he's going to be picking up wickets at that pace, doing that amount with the ball. So fair play to them both. They were the best opening bowlers on the pitch by a long way. They both averaged under 30, both took 11 wickets. Wokes and Overton for England both had a strike rate of about 100 and averaged about 50. So why did we lose the test match? I don't know.
Oh, no, I appreciate that, and I love the way you've kind of included some of the stats there, so I don't have to talk about them. So thank you very much. I want to talk about Craig Brathwaite before we end things. So Craig Brathwaite, the captain, Craig Brathwaite coming into bowl at random times. Craig Brathwaite, the opening batsman. Now, what he's been able to do, and I mentioned this in almost every test series, one of the best openers over the past 3-4 years, in my opinion, have been Dimuth Karunaratne from Sri Lanka, Dean Elgar, and Craig Brathwaite. Now, what did he do in this series to be able to score a number of runs. The way he plays, it's a bit slower than you'd expect a genuine opener to play. But
Yeah.
you, from an England perspective, you had Dom Sibley who played that game. You have Alex Lees who kind of played that game in this series, but they kept getting out rather than Craig Brathwaite, who stepped up and started to score runs and scoring 100, which was really nice to watch. So,
Yeah.
what do you think about Craig Brathwaite and his batting ability within this series
Oh,
specifically?
amazing consistency. Like, what would we give as an England cricket fan to have someone that goes into a test series? Yeah, there's two roads, there's two real flat decks. But then a game where it isn't a flat deck, score 55, 33, 160, 56, 17, 20 not out.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a series for a hell of a player. He's averaged he's averaged 85 this year, 33 last year. He's averaged peaks and troughs. But I feel as a captain, he's made of the right metal to be able to be just a real backbone to this lineup. And you saw that in this. Like, anyone looking around the world, if you go, would England beat the West Indies at cricket? You'd probably turn around and say yes. Just giving it the eye test without getting into the details of how England can't play very well in the West Indies for the last 50 years, you'd probably say they would. But he was just amazing. He played a captain's innings on more than one occasion. And what I liked was, there's the steely Dom Sibley, Alex Lee sort of backbone of a small strike rate, and I appreciate that. But his 50 odd in the first test came off about 40, 50 balls. So he offered variety. And he's such a languid character. I really think that's going to resonate well with everyone else. And what do the West Indies struggle with over the last decade or so since Laura and Chanderpaul? It's batting. And if you've got a guy that's going to lead from the front and bat like this, Joshua De Silva, for an example, is going to take a lot of heart from that and go, cool, that's the example that's being set. It's not this 20, 30 flash in the pan, get nicked off trying to go at a 60 strike rate. It's solid Test cricket, and I just feel he's a good player. He's got the potential to be a great player for the West Indies going forward, and he's just made of the right stuff.
Yeah, completely. And I think the best part is that he has years to go from a West Indian standpoint. He can lead the side and potentially get a lot of the younger players to play, if not like him, but in that type of consistency manner for sure. I have to ask you one thing before I let you go, Rob. So there's a segment we have on the channel called Kamalka Moments. I want to ask you, what was your Kamalka moment of this particular series? If you had to pick one,
If I had to pick one, I would probably say, from the neutral, I would say it's Joshua De Silva's century is the reason they won that test match, hands down. No one else could bat on that surface. He did, and he made it look really easy. So that would be the one for him. From an English cricket fan, declaring 3 times in 2 test matches and still not winning.
Well, fair enough. I think that was a surprise because I did notice that, but I didn't really clock it until I saw the video, which, again, like I said, I'm going to post it up here for everyone to watch. But until I watched your reaction, I was like, yeah, England's declared 3 out of 6 times, and they didn't win the match. It just doesn't make sense. It's something you don't expect. But yeah, definitely. I think from an English perspective, at least on those flatter decks, they did look quite good with the bat. But again, as the ball starts to move, that's an issue. That's an issue with a lot of teams. And I don't want to go into that right now because this video will become an hour and 24 minutes. But genuinely, Rob, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on. For everyone watching, please do check out the Leading Edge Cricket Podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube. They've recently hit 1K subscribers. So please do check them out. Please subscribe, like, do all that good stuff. And yeah, thank you again. And until next time, everyone, take care.
Yeah. Thank you very much, my friend.
Cheers.